just so we see what Svetozar Gligoric looked like. There he is. You can see him there. Got lots of photographs of the great Svetozar Gligoric. And that's just on the Commons Google images for him. And obviously you can't use these images, half of them. They've all got copyrights and stuff. But as a general principle, we just go in there and have a look. And there's old Svetozar Gligoric. He was actually such a great player, right? And he was the greatest Serbian chess player, the old Svetozar. And yeah, and he was a journalist too. Yeah, so yeah, he was a journalist. He used to write for Chess Life and Chess Review. Now, I don't know whether, I think it was Chess Life and Review, I'm not sure. But there was two magazines, Chess Life and Chess Review. They might have amalgamated them. But it was a beautiful magazine produced by the United States Chess Federation. Absolutely beautiful magazine. And he was a columnist. And he was also a musician. You might remember I did a tribute to Lajos Portish. And Lajos Portish, he used to love to sing his operettas. And we got Svetozar Gligoric. He was a musician as well as a chess player. Isn't it amazing? A lot of these top chess players, they're musically endowed, or they like mathematics or something like that. And but he was absolutely fantastic. He had a peak rating of about 2600, which was in July 1971. So he had a peak rating in July 1971. He got his international master title. Yeah, he got his international master title. I'll just make sure you can see the board here. I'll make that a little bit better for you. Sorry. That's a bit better. Yeah, so Svetozar got his international master title in 1950. He became a grandmaster in 1951. Right? And then I was born. No, I was born in 1952. So he got his grandmaster title 1 year before I was born. So he wasn't celebrating my birth or anything like that. Maybe my mother was thinking about me. Anyway, he won the national championship of Yugoslavia 12 times. Right? You might remember Lajos Portish won the championship of Hungary. He won that 9 times. Okay. Where are we now? Yeah, that's all right. You can see me though, can't you? You can see me and hear me, no problems. Yeah. I vote for Alba. Absolute rubbish. I'm not voting for anybody. I'm not talking about politics, Mr. Robert Fox. I'm trying to be apolitical, though I can't stand any of them. But here we go. When he was young, he got I think his father had died. This is Svetozar Gligoric we're talking about, not Robert Fox. And yeah, when his father had died, and one of the people in the place where he lived, a boarder, he taught him how to play chess, right? So Svetozar Gligoric, he was very poor, and so he made his own chess set out of wine, the cork tops out of the wine bottles, right? Can you imagine? You get the old wine bottle, you get the cork, and you cutting or carving each little piece. I mean, what sort of mind would that be? Just his drive to must have loved the game so much when he was taught how to play. He's fascinated by it. And there he was. He was carving out of the cork tops of wine bottles the chess pieces, trying to make his own chess set. And he did very well academically at school. We're talking about Grandmaster Svetozar Gligoric. And he was invited to a prince's do or whatever in Yugoslavia, or he was going to be the prince. And apparently he did tell his friend that he was embarrassed because he was poor and he had to wear poor clothes, which is very sad, really, because he's only a young man, but he had to wear clothing, like attire that he was a bit embarrassed to wear. He also wrote a book. Oh, he was very popular. Oh, Svetozar Gligoric, was he popular? Grandmasters, there's lots of grandmasters might say, oh, Hikaru's popular, people love him, he's always smiling, he doesn't cause anybody any unhappiness whatsoever, he's a very, very nice guy, just like Fabio Caruana. Fabio's like that. And everyone loves him, right? And like everyone loves Vishy Anand. The world loves Vishy Anand. He's such a likeable character. And anyway, Svetozar Gligoric, he was one of them, right? He used to travel to all the tournaments all over the world because he was that good. He was invited, and he was very popular on tour. And he was a symbol of the fact that he never took any harm against any other person. Is that he wrote a book, and it was called I Play Against the Pieces, right? So in other words, he doesn't play the person and say, oh, I'm going to smash you, I'm going to kill you. No, he used to just play against the chess pieces, right? And so that's what he called his book, I Play Against Pieces. Now, if I go back my memory, oh, God help me, God forgive me, but if I go back to my memory, where are we? If I go back to my memory of the old Soviet Union, right? I'm not criticising the old Soviet Union. Had some good parts to it and some bad parts, like any government really. But but they used, when they were teaching the chess players, they used to think hate was a strong, this is what we heard in Australia, they said, oh, we used to think hate was a very strong motivational tool. So I think they were taught to hate their opponents, but not Svetozar Gligoric. He only used to play against the pieces. So he was over that sort of mentality. But the Russians used to do everything that they could to maintain their leadership or superiority on the world stage in chess. I remember, Bobby Fischer, I think he might have realised this, but Svetozar Gligoric, he made quite a few interzonals. He made the interzonals quite a number of times, and he got to the candidates, but the old Russian juggernaut, or not Russian, the old Soviet Union juggernaut, they get all their super grandmasters in. They analysed all these kings Indians, because if you go on to chessgames.com and you look at all the games of Svetozar Gligoric going from the 1940s right up to the modern times, you would see that he was a real exponent of the king's Indian. He was just a champion at that. But the super grandmasters got together and said, oh, we've got to bust his king's Indian. And they did a good job, because TAL did win the candidates match. That's right. So Svetozar Gligoric, the great grandmaster from Serbia, or Yugoslavia in those days, but Serbia today, I believe. He actually beat Mikhail TAL in the first game in 1968, right? in the candidates, but he didn't really have much luck in the candidates. I suppose you make your own luck, but he didn't have that much luck in the candidates, and he didn't get. I think he came across a whole generation of fabulous players, right? Have a look at the types of players that were around when he was around and playing. You got Portoroz, you got Carpov, you got all these top super grandmasters, Bronsteins. He went through all that period too, and he got fantastic results. But there was these players were like sort of on another level. All the world champions he kept coming up against. He came up against Bobby Fischer, for goodness sake, right? The greatest player that's ever lived. He really did it tough on the world stage, but he accredited himself with great dignity, and he was applauded in his own country as like a super sportsman. As I say, what I'll do is I had to choose two games. Gligoric was born in the 2nd of February 1923, and unlike Lajos Portish is still alive, Grandmaster Lajos Portish, the great, the 60s, 70s and 80s. Gligoric passed away, unfortunately. The world lost him. He died in August 2012, 14th August. And and he died in his beloved Belgrade in Serbia. The place where he was born, the place that he honoured so much. And I'm sure he'd probably be happy to go there, in his beloved Serbia. Anyway, we're going to look at a game. We're going to take a great game. I'll tell you how unfortunate he was. He played TAL in the candidates, right? Mikhail TAL, in 1968. TAL had just beaten Fischer 4 times around about that time. He beat Bobby Fischer 4 times, the great Mikhail TAL. TAL was just something special. He was called the magician, like me. That's what I call myself on chess.com. I call myself the magician in honour of the great Mikhail TAL. And it's just amazing to see that the first game of the candidates match, Gligoric is playing the black pieces and smashes up the great Mikhail TAL, right? Then he had 2 draws, and it sort of things went a bit haywire after that. But he started off the match in the candidates against Mikhail TAL in Belgrade in 1968. And we're going to have a look at this game. It's a marvellous game. It's a wonderful game of chess. We're going to go to the analysis room. Hopefully, you're going to have to tell me whether you can see it, because they rebooted the system. Hold on, no, it's in my archives. It's in my archives. I think I saved it in my library. See, if you've got full service on chess.com and you've got Diamond membership, you can get your favourite games, and you can do what I did. You can save them, you can play through them in the analysis room and take them into your archives, right? And you can keep them in your library, your own personal library, for your favourite games that are ever played, or you might have played some fantastic games. You can save your games in there. Anyway, so we're going into my library. Here it is. And we're going to play through the game of Mikhail TAL playing the white pieces against Gligoric. Now, what's happening here? Don't tell me I can't access the library. A communist sympathiser. Gotta like the North Korean government. Everyone likes them. Bowich just says, "Hello, would you like to play me?" I can't play you right now. We're doing a special on the great Svetozar Gligoric. Here it is. TAL Gligoric candidates from the round 1 Belgrade 1968. And here we go. We're going to have a look at this. How do we look at it? How do we look at it? Well, we look at it. We're looking, analyse. Here we go. Should come up now. There we go. So we've got the game ready. And now, okay, so E4 is played by Mikhail TAL. And, I did mention, most of you guys will probably know anyway, Mikhail TAL is an attacking player. We all know that, don't we? Mikhail TAL, we think of combinations and brilliancies and everything. Well, that's why he plays E4. You don't get so many brilliancies playing the D4 systems. They're a bit quieter, more positional. That's why I covered our friend Grandmaster Leos Portoroz last week. He was very much a positional player. He was a grind you down. And Grandmaster Svetozar Gligoric and Mikhail TAL, well, they're like a bit of a wild stoush. So let's see what they do. So E4, knight to F3, knight C6, and now the mark of the Roy Lopez. Svetozar Gligoric probably talking to a lot to Bobby Fischer, and he's probably convinced that the Roy Lopez is the way to go to beat Mikhail TAL. So he has a go, right? A6 is played, conventional Russian theory, or Soviet theory then. Bishop A4, knight F6, okay. So he's on the E-pawn, and we know all this. This is the Roy Les opening Morphy defence. We talk about it all the time. White castles. I'll put that down. We don't need that right now. White castles and rook E1. Okay, rook E1's played. Now, this is very important that you make this move. If you just castle now, if black castles, white can take the knight and get a free pawn, right? So you can't castle straight away. You've got to play this move and kick the bishop away, stop it from taking the knight. And that's the bishop goes to B3. And this is exactly the same position you saw in Magnus Carlsen Nepomniachtchi match, right? In the world title. So it's standard stuff. D6 is played. I think in the other line, I think rather than D6 being played, black castled, right? Trying to get a martial attack. The sign of the martial is this. If black castles here, right? And white plays C3 with the idea of D4, well then black can just play D5, and then we've got a martial attack. And that follows the game Nepomniachtchi and Carlsen. And white often plays the move A4 to try to stop the martial. Or sometimes they used to play H3 to try to stop the martial attack. But Jan Nepomniachtchi, when he was playing Carlsen, he played the move A4 to try to stop the martial attack. Anyway, here we go. D6 is played, different game, different era. We're going back to 1968. C3, these guys didn't have chess engines. Their chess engine was in their mind, right? Okay, I've got my own chess engine. Grandmaster Teddy! No, I'm only joking, right? Okay, he castled, so black castled. The great Svetozar Gligoric castled. H3 is played, right? Now that's just he wants to stop the martial. That was the way they used to stop the martial attack in those days, from D5. And white's already played D6. Now, the great Natalie Carpov, another great world chess champion. Oh, Natalie Carpov, what a beautiful chess player he was. He is. He still is today. But he used to play the Brer defence, right? So after H3, he would play knight here and knight here and bishop to B7, and he would just sort of do the old boa constrictor. He used to like squeeze tight until you got no oxygen and can't breathe. And Karpov would be thinking I will choke you like chicken. No, he wasn't thinking that. Only joking, right? Here we go. So H6 is played, and I wonder what that's for. Oh, I know. He wants to play. I'll show you. He wants to play rook to E8, right? Now, if you play rook to E8, okay, knight can go to G5, right? So if you play rook here, the knight can come over here and threaten your pawn twice, right? And then you'd have to put your rook back. And then the knight goes back, and then you put your rook back, the knight goes back, and it's probably a draw, okay? So that's how the grandmasters used to draw. H6, so he plays there so he can play rook E8, right? But modern theory says that you don't have to play H6, you just play rook E8 anyway. It's the best, it's a better way to play it. So D4 is played, right? And it's just Bobby Fischer would play D4 here because he liked the idea of just playing a Roy Lopez and getting his thematic D4 move in. Rook E8 is played. Knight B5 to D2. He knows that the rook and the knight are attacking that pawn, so he brings in another knight to hold the pawn with the rook. Right. Bishop F8 is played. Okay. And now this pawn is protected by the knight and the pawn and the rook. So black's got no problems, one would think. So how does white proceed to try to attack black? How does Svetozar Gligoric beat the great Mikhail TAL? Mikhail TAL is the great attacking player. According to the engine, we can't forget the side of the board, the analysis room here. On the side of the board there, it says that white's got an advantage, right? According to the chess engine. Now, as I said, they didn't have chess engines in those days. So knight there is played. Now, it looks like you could take a pawn here, doesn't it? And win a pawn because you've got the rook and knight there, two pieces attacking the e-pawn, but you can't. I'll tell you why. Because after pawn takes pawn and pawn recaptures and knight takes pawn, he put his bishop in here attacking two knights. Can you see that? That's a little trap for beginners. But the grandmasters see that. They're using their binoculars. Because they know the grandmaster secret, don't they? That's right. Got to take the lens caps off your binoculars, right? Anyway, bishop b7 is played. And it's a sort of an indirect attack on the e-pawn. Knight to g3. So the knight has wandered around here and here. Maybe it might want to go there later on if he closes the position. So he's just sort of manoeuvring around, manoeuvring. And then the knight hits the bishop, right? So Svetozar says to Grandmaster TAL, he says, cop that, buddy. I'm going to take your bishop off. TAL says, oh, no, you're not. I've been playing Bobby Fischer, and I know that you've got to keep the bishop. That's right. This bishop is extremely important to the white position, so you don't leave your bishop there to be taken off. The knight came in there. He doesn't like his knight on the side of the board. You remember that chess rule, the Springer am Rande bring Schande, or the knight on the rim of the board, or the side of the board, is grim. The knight on the rim is grim. So he knows better than that, better than anybody, because he's a tactical player. The great Grandmaster Svetozar Gligoric. He used to be a pretty good positional player too. He used to grind his opponents down as well. Because I saw there was a lot of moves there, 60 moves or more. A4 is played. This is often a mark of the Roy Lopez, trying to take advantage of the queen side, right? The queen side, the structure, the white squares. And he plays D5. Now look at this move, will you? Look at this. Straight into him, D5. Now you think, oh, hold on. Can you win a pawn here? Not really. If you take this pawn here, well, that pawn's there for nothing. Well, let's see what he did. Oh no, he hit a knight instead. Well, what's he up to? Oh, he's taking away the defender. He's taking away the defender to this pawn. He wants to take this pawn if the knight goes back. So what does black play? Bang! He says, oh no, I'm not moving my knight. I want to destroy your king. My bishop, I want to open my bishop and destroy your king. Woo! That's a funny diagonal. He wants to go down there. So he's threatening pawn takes knight and busting the king wide open. And I'm sure Mikhail TAL wouldn't like that. So he played knight takes pawn. Black played knight takes knight. Okay. And this is interesting. You can play pawn takes knight, but knight takes pawn might be able to be played. It's a tough one, isn't it? Okay, it's a tough one. It really is. No, I don't think you can take that one. Maybe that's the right way to go. Oh, look, looky. Yes, you can. So, so if you take that pawn, if you take this knight, black can take that pawn because he's got the e5 move. Just in case you want to play queen here and attack the knight, threaten a checkmate, you can still play e5 and attack your queen and your knight and smash your king again. So bishop takes knight by Mikhail TAL. Notice the bar on the side of the board. The chess engine's now saying positions equal. Right. Bishop takes bishop. Rook takes bishop. Okay. And now the knight's attacked. The knight's attacked. And white wants to steal the pawn. And now queen to d5 is played. He's saying, you're not stealing my pawn, buddy. He's attacking the rook, right? So what does white play? Rook to g4. So he swings his rook over to the king side and he's threatening bishop takes pawn. And he's threatening to take the knight. Mikhail TAL. He loves attacking TAL. Of course he loves to attack. So the knight goes back there. And now look at this. The knight's threatening this little pawn. So what does TAL do? He says, I like the king. Who's winning this game? Is TAL winning the game or is Svetozar Gligoric winning the game? Who's winning the game? TAL's attacking. And if TAL's attacking you, you know that you could be in trouble. And the engine says that white's better. Okay. Knight takes pawn. And now white's winning, apparently. So what move do you play? Oh. The engine didn't like that move. So what was the correct move? Let's go back. What was the correct move there? What was the correct move? Can you see a correct move there? I don't know what you could play. Is a better move than that? He played rook a3. You can't, if he plays rook a3, you can't take that off because after rook takes pawn check and knight here, it's curtains. It's really, really bad. I wouldn't like to have that position. So let's see now. Rook to a3. I wonder what else you could do. What if you played rook here? Apparently that's a better move. According to the chess engine, that's a much better move. Okay, so my move is better than Mikhail TAL's move. TAL just likes to be a smarty pants. He says, TAL's saying, you can't take my rook, I'm going to take your knight. Right? But Svetozar Gligoric, being the great grandmaster that he is, he says, I don't want your filthy rook, but I will take a pawn and protect my knight. Rook takes pawn. Okay. There's a real threat there now by white. The threat is pawn hits queen, and then you can just play queen takes knight, can't you? You attack the pawn and somehow you might be able to get something. So let's have a look, see what's going on. The engine says it's equal. Rook to b8 by black. The engine seems to like it, but says, oh, white's better slightly. Rook takes pawn by white. And the engine says, oh, not so. White's better, he says, but only by a little bit. Okay. So now what does Svetozar Gligoric do? After rook takes pawn. It looks like you're under attack everywhere, doesn't it? White's attacking, black's attacking, they're both attacking. Pawn takes pawn. Well, that releases the tension. All that tension is evaporated now. Okay, so c5, he attacks him. Wow, what a move. So he says, I will attack you because you can't take this pawn, or I will take your queen. And we don't want the queen alert alarm going off, do we? Not the queen alert alarm. That's the last thing we need. Not in this game. So, bishop goes back and retreats because it's not really doing much there on h6. So he retreats and now he's holding the d pawn. And one looks at this position and thinks, well, oh, this could peter out to be a draw, couldn't it? Okay. Rook to b5. Where did that move come from? So the great Svetozar Gligoric says, well, you can't take my pawn, but what I will do is I will pile up on your pawn. So now he's got 1, 2, 3 pieces, 4 pieces, including the queen, attacking the pawn, right? And the pawn's vulnerable. Look at this queen. Look at this powerful queen in the middle of the board. Look at the queen. Wow, look at the scope of the queen. That's how the queen moves, right? I think I learned this in chess somewhere. Wow, what a great square for your queen. So Svetozar Gligoric, he knows the importance of piece coordination, and he knows that he has a beautifully placed queen. It's performing a lot of functions. So rook to there, rook hits queen. He says, the Mikhail TAL says, I don't like your queen on this powerful square. Buzz off, he says. And the queen goes back and hits the castle. So now white's got to answer a few questions. He's got to answer a few questions. So what does he do? He plays rook h6. Well, of course he does. He does, because being it's Mikhail TAL, he wants his rook to be attacking the black king. He says, I've still got hope of a big attack there, but the engine's saying that black's winning. Well, let's have a look and see what TAL does. What does Gligoric do? Knight takes pawn. Suddenly, Seymour, the position's equal again. So knight takes pawn might not have been the best move. Knight takes knight. Rook pins the queen. Queen alert, queen alert, queen alert. Ah! I'd be terrified if Svetozar Gligoric did that to my queen. So what does TAL do? Well, he's got a plan. Mikhail TAL, you genius. This is what he does. He moves his bishop back, right? And TAL has calculated all this. He's calculated it, right? And now what happens? Positions equal. He plays queen hits bishop. Queen hits bishop. And now white's winning. It says white's winning. Is white winning? I don't know. Looks pretty bad, doesn't it? Can you play knight here? It looks bad, doesn't it? Eh? All right then. So, queen there. What's this move? What's this move? Where did that come from? King alert. King alert. Woo, woo, woo. He's threatening. He's threatening. TAL is threatening checkmate. But how did the great grandmaster, Serbian grandmaster Svetozar Gligoric handle this move? Well, he did the logical thing. He took the bishop a check. And why not? He says, I've got to check. It's not mate yet. And TAL went and hid in the corner and said, I'm going to checkmate you. My name's Mikhail TAL, and I want checkmate. Svetozar Gligoric says, oh, no, you don't. I'll give you a check with my bishop, right? And he took it off, right? He took it off. But TAL has got another idea. I'll tell you what happened here. Whoops, sorry. When he checked with the bishop, you can't put the pawn in, right? If you put the pawn in, you get checkmated there, right? So you can't do that. So you've only got one move. You've got to take the bishop. Okay. And now black's not really threatening a checkmate anymore. So, oh, look, I mean, white wasn't. So now there's a check there and his castle's attacked. So what does he do? He put his rook back. Okay. And so now queen takes rook. So it looks bad, doesn't it? It does look really bad. But TAL being TAL, he's got another move. Knight hits queen, right? So now he's threatening knight checks here, right? He's threatening knight checks here, and he's threatening the queen at the same time, okay? So what do you do here? What move would you play? Rook here. Look at this move. He says, you can have my queen. Take my queen, Mr. TAL. He says, because I've got a dirty, big, filthy checkmate there. And how are you going to stop that? Because your rook's pinned. You've got nowhere to hide your king. So, yeah, you're lost. There's nothing you can do. You can't take my queen, and there's nothing you can do. Well, Mikhail TAL, he found a move. Can you see what Mikhail TAL did? Can you see what he did? He took the pawn with check. Yes, he took the pawn with check. That's right. Because before, if he took the queen, it wasn't with check, right? And now he can't go in the corner because it's checkmate with the queen. So king takes, that's forced. Knight takes, queen check. Suddenly TAL's back in the game, right? King there, and now rook checks. And the king's got a lovely escape square. TAL can run away. But how does Svetozar Gligoric handle all this? He plays king up there. He wants to push his pawn for a queen. And the knight goes there. And what happens then? He puts his rook back. Yes, he moves his rook back. Why would he move his rook back in that position? Well, you know something, there's a rule in chess that in rook and pawn endgames, rooks go behind passed pawns. So the real reason for going back here is not to protect that pawn, but it's to go behind the passed pawn to push it through for a queen. Okay? Now watch this. Knight checks. So now he wants to stop it. He wants to get a he wants to get a blockade. He wants to get a blockade there and tie you all up so you can't get your queen. Okay. So the Mikhail TAL has given the big knight check. And Svetozar Gligoric looked at the position, he took the knight off. Why? Because of the passed pawn. He says, my rook's going to go behind my passed pawn and I'm going to push it. And how are you going to stop it? Pawn takes, and he played rook behind the passed pawn. The rook says, king goes up. He's got to try to go up with his pawns. And so his king's got, there's only one way to draw these types of positions. You've got to get your king up real quick. You've got to get your king up there real quick. and you're going to go over here with the rook and back here and take the pawn off and hope that your two pawns you can get a passed pawn over there or something, right? But it's dream time stuff. The pawn moves forwards. The king comes up. What's he after? Pawn's going forwards. Check. King there. How are you going to stop the queen? Rook there. Pawn forwards. And king in here. And now resigns. There's just not enough time to do anything. And that's the end of the game. That's how Grandmaster Svetozar Gligoric won round one of the candidates tournament playoff with Mikhail TAL, right, in Belgrade in 1968. Yes, it was in Belgrade, in the capital of his favourite country, his country. Okay, rightio, I've got one more game for you. One more game. I've chosen a game from the Portoroz, it's a famous tournament, Portoroz Interzonal in 1958 from round 3. And again, I've got Grandmaster Svetozar Gligoric playing the black pieces. You know why? It's because when I studied Svetozar Gligoric, I noticed he was an exponent of the King's Indian. He played the black pieces so well that I just want to learn how to play the black pieces and share this with you. So, g'day, Natterbox. I can see you there, buddy. I can see Natterbox. I know you're there. Magnify Balls is there too. All subscribers with Prime, I welcome you. Thank you for coming in and watching my special on Svetozar, a tribute to Grandmaster Svetozar Gligoric. We've just seen how Mikhail TAL was destroyed by in the first round of the candidates playoff in 1968 by Gligoric. TAL beat him, and now we're going to watch Larsen, Bent Larsen. You might remember we're going back to 1958, but Bent Larsen was a great Danish grandmaster. He made the candidates, you might recall, and lost 6-0 to Bobby Fischer before Bobby Fischer played Spassky in that famous match in Reykjavik in Iceland. So we're going to look at Larsen Gligoric, Portoroz Interzonal 1958, round 3, and we've got the King's Indian defence for you. Here we go. We'll go back to the archives. Go back to the archives and library, and here we are, Larsen Gligoric. I've prepared all this just for you guys, right? Okay. And after, we'll take on all challenges, right? You can play me some chess if you like, and I'll play anybody that wants to make a challenge. And I am the magician. I mean, we just featured TAL's game, but I'm called the magician after Mikhail TAL. Right, so here we go. And we're going here into the analysis of Larsen Gligoric. And guess what the opening is? It's the King's Indian defence. It's the Petrosian variation of the King's Indian. So it was named after Tigran Petrosian, the tiger, the Russian tiger. The great world champion, Tigran Petrosian. Right, here we go. So Bent Larsen opens up with d4. Yeah, Bent Larsen I'll tell you what Bent Larsen liked. Bent Larsen used to love to play b3. Oh, he did. So if you play b3, you might want to go and research Bent Larsen's games with the move b3, because he used to play it exceptionally well against other grandmasters. Okay. But he plays d4 on this occasion, and Bent Larsen used to like to play positional games. He was a real artiste. Right? Knight f6, c4, g6, King's Indian, knight c3, bishop g7, e4. Okay, so White's just trying to control the centre, gain the centre, put lots of pawns there, effect some sort of central control, spatial control. D6, okay, just to prevent E5 and to open up a bishop and to castle, I suppose. Bishop to E2, he's playing quietly. I think there's an Aberbach system or something where you play bishop here. You might get kicked and then you go back and you try to get a tempo with queen to D2. So bishop to E2 gives you options. Right? But Bobby Fischer used to always say you develop your knights before your bishops. Bishop E2. But I can't criticise Grandmaster Bent Larsen because he was a great player. Castles. Knight to F3. It's the same sort of position by transposition, isn't it, right? E5. Here we go. Straight into it. And he knows all the complications. So it looks like you can just take a pawn. For the beginners out there, looks like you can take a pawn off, but after pawn takes pawn, right? Pawn takes pawn. If you take that one, well, he can play rook here, or he can just play knight takes pawn too, right? Okay, and he gets his pawn back. So there's no free pawn there. No, there's no, as the chess brass says, there's no McDonald's gifts today in this game. D5 is played, so Bent Larsen plays that positional game. He says, I've got space, and I'll play the positional game. So with the advanced pawn here, supported by these two pawns, White's got the spatial advantage, right? And the engine, you can see the bar on the side of the board, it's saying that, yes, White's got the advantage. Knight to A6, right? Interesting idea. Knight to D2, so White's preempting. Actually, you might remember Boris Spassky played Bobby Fischer in 1972, and I think Queen to C2 was played. Queen to C2 was played somewhere here, and then Bobby played Knight to H5, and the bishop took the knight off. And we all thought that Bobby had gone crazy and his pawns were destroyed on the king side. But in actual fact, Bobby Fischer went on to win that game against Spassky in the World Championship, and it was one of the greatest games ever played. So C5 is played. I think he just wants to close the centre, right? And start his own operations if he can. A3 is played. Good spatial technique here. A3 with the idea of B4 later. No rush for White. No one's under attack at the moment. Be careful. Be very, very careful. Okay, so Knight goes to E8. Well, White's probably thinking, I don't have anything to worry about because all these pieces are on the back rank, right? So because all the pieces are on the back rank, Bent Larsen thinks, oh, all right, then I'll go and attack him. I'll just go pawn here and checkmate him or something, right? That's not a bad idea. Right? White's winning according to the engine. F5 is played. And White's still winning. You can see that bar on the side of the board. That's how you tell who's winning. H5 is played. Now this is a good idea because you're opening up the H file so that you can do something. You know, you might be able to play knight here and queen here and run your queen across here and checkmate down there or something. I don't know what he's doing. I'm not in the same caliber as this Grandmaster. So knight to F6. So I did play Untitled Tuesday and I got 2 draws against Grandmasters this week. I was very happy. Pawn takes pawn. Pawn takes pawn, recaptures. And now, do you think the black position looks a little bit open? I wouldn't like to be playing Mikhail TAL with the... black looks like he's got a decent game. He's got all the thematic plays. And he's also got the option of closing the position. See, this move closes the position. Be very hard to dig white out. It's almost like he got buried in an avalanche. You'd never find him. Knight to f3 is played, right? It would be bad to take this pawn because after knight here, white would recapture that pawn with a big advantage. He moves the knight back, and because the knight's not doing anything there. Oh, it was preventing this move, b4, but I think he wants to do something else with his knight, like a6 and b5. Right? White moves the knight over there towards the king. and still, when you look at this position, you say, well, white's got spatial advantage. He's still controlling his e4 square very, very nicely. And his bishops are still pretty good. The bishops look really nice. Queen e7. Now, this is an interesting move. He just moves up one square. He's like, oh, why does he do that? Well, I don't know. I don't know. He probably just wants the practice of connecting his rooks. Queen to d3. Look at this. The queen wants to go over here and give him a dirty big check one day down there or something. Oh, he's blocked him off. Now he can't go anywhere because the bishop will take the queen. And this knight looks overly advanced. Bishop d2. White's going into survival mode here. He's going into survival mode. A6. It says white's winning. G3. Oh, he's trying to break open the king side. Genius. Knight to G4. Now the engine says white is winning now. It's pretty clear white's winning. How would you win this if you were playing the white pieces? What would you play? Would you play pawn takes pawn? Or would you play... What would you play? Could you play bishop takes knight? No. Could you play knight hits rook? What about this move? Let's see what the engine says. Oh, look at that! Black's winning, so you can't do that. Can you play knight e6? Open up a big square here for your knight. Oh, the engine likes that move. So that, my friends, is the move, I'd say. Right. So he doesn't play that, though. He plays knight back. Oh, no, what a disaster. He's gone back. But the engine says white's still winning. He played pawn here, so black's attacking him. So what black's doing is he's saying, well, I'm going to strike on your queen side, and I'm going to strike on your king side too. He says, I want you to worry about this side of the board and worry about that side of the board. You have so many worries, you have a mental breakdown, I win, right? But the only difference is we know Svetozar Gligoric says, I play the pieces, not the person, right? So we know that he's really only playing the pieces. It's not a personal issue. So pawn takes pawn for white. Excellent move. Pawn takes, pawn recaptures. And now this knight's got a lovely square, hasn't it? Bishop takes knight. Well, the knight's gone. But guess what? That's the losing move. In this position, the bar on the side of the board says white's winning. And when he takes the knight, bad mistake, Grandmaster Bent Larsen, the position turns right around, now black's winning. All because of that one move, okay? So I think white must have lost ideas on how to play the position. Bishop takes knight, bishop takes bishop, and now black is winning. Knight takes pawn, threatening this pawn here, which would win a rook, right? Rook takes knight. Now this is the move that no doubt Grandmaster Bent Larsen didn't see. He probably didn't see this move. This is a very powerful move. It takes away the powerful knight, which would nullify White's bishop, right? This knight here would have nullified White's bishop one way or the other, could have went into e6. Now, in this position, Black shows what he's been preparing all along with his attack and counter-attack on both sides of the board. Pawn takes pawn. He's opening up the b file for action down here. He's attacking the queen. The e pawn's on here. The knight takes pawn, might be on at some stage. Queen takes pawn. Well, you think, oh, that holds everything, brother. I'm fine. Okay, you might think so, but look at this move. Knight to b5. Now he wants to remove this final piece, the final piece of the puzzle. Because once he can remove this piece of the puzzle, the e-pawn would fall and these bishops could be just absolutely murderous, especially if the rook can come in down here. Right? So, king to d2. Rook to f8. So he hits the bishop, he activates his rook, puts his rook on a semi-open file, and we know there's a pawn here behind it, and the bishop goes back. Well played. And you think, oh, well, what's wrong here? Well, I'll show you what's wrong. Bishop hits castle. Now, where does the castle go? Rook to g1. Well, fair enough, it threatens rook takes pawn. Knight takes knight. Now, remember we spoke about the e-pawn. Pawn takes knight, now bishop takes pawn. So the black king is safe, right? And what has black got and what has white got? Well, white hasn't got much shelter for his king, right? And he wouldn't like putting his rook over here. He might have to, but it doesn't seem to do enough to hold on to the position. It might be the best move, rook to b1. The position says it's pretty equal. I don't like that move. I would give him the rook back and say, please take my rook. But you know what? You can't stop queen here and bishop takes pawn there and these two pawns rolling through. So let's see what took place. He played the bishop back, queen to b3, and he pushed the pawn. And now it's curtains because the white queen's cut off from the king. Right, black wants to play queen here and check. Right. So you got to stop that. So you take the pawn off. Now the rook hits the queen. See how the black pieces are coordinated together? The bishop protects the rook. The bishop attacks the pawn. The rook protected by the bishop attacks the pawn and the queen. A triangulation of some sort, isn't it? It's almost like a triangle. Anyway, queen to f4 is played. And now, what does he do? Queen to b7. He's just simply threatening queen takes pawn check here and a massive checkmating attack here. That'd be mate in 2, right? Okay. So he moved his king. He thought, I've got to run away. I've got to go and hide. And he says, no, you're not. You're not allowed to hide. I'll give you a big check. All right. He says, oh, I've got to go and run away. He says, no, you can't. I'm going to give you another check. And then he thought, oh, no, if I play king here, bishop here will trap the queen, right? So pins the queen against the king. So he can't go there because he'll lose his queen, right? So where does he go? Well, he goes back into the fire, straight from the frying pan, back into the fire. And now bishop checks. And there's nowhere for the king to go. So it's in that position that the great Grandmaster Bent Larsen bowed down to Svetozar Gligoric Says, thank you, Grandmaster. You can have that point. You earned it. There you go. So that's the story of, or part of the story. There's a lot more. But you can do your own research on the great Svetozar Gligoric. And he was the best ever player from Serbia. Won the national championship of Yugoslavia 12 times. Right? Okay. And he was a gentleman of the board. You know, that's probably the most important thing. If you're playing chess and you're a gentleman, you're respected by your fellow players, that's probably more important than anything else. You know that? There's one player that, like Grandmaster Svetozar Gligoric, he's loved too. And that's Grandmaster Teddy. He's never said a bad word in his life. I can vouch for him. He's never said a bad word in his life because he hasn't got a mouth. Oh, yes, he has. But he's never said anything, really. I put words in your mouth, don't I, Teddy? There you go. Thank you very much for that, for watching and sharing that with me. What we'll do is we will go back to live chess at chess.com. We'll say hello to everybody in the chat. Durian Defence is here. He's a subscriber with Prime. And as is Natterbox. So all hail Teddy the beneficent. Have a great chat, Spazza. Oh, thank you, Spazza. I've got a challenger here. So I'm taking on all challengers, right, now. And it's 8:01 p.m. We were scheduled on chess.com to talk about the great Grandmaster Svetozar Gligoric, and we've done that. And may he rest in peace. What a wonderful legacy he's left to the world. He added a lot of theory too to the King's Indian and a few other openings. He was a great theoretician and a great man. I think we all know that you measure a man by what he achieves, but also the way other people respect him, and perceive him in our society. Let's go there.